Hey everybody, my name's Rebecca. I work for the Remote Sensing Centre with Queensland Department of Environment and Science. I have a pre-recorded video for you all. It's just a basic overview of all our products, mainly to measure ground cover across Queensland and Australia in general. So, Jonathan, if you want to start.
How do we know what's happening with ground cover across Queensland? Why would we want to know what's happening with ground cover across Queensland? It plays an important part in ecosystem processes and is a great indicator for management effectiveness. When ground cover is severely reduced, there is a high potential for soil erosion, a loss of ecosystem resources, and reduced grazing potential. Hi, my name is Rebecca, and I work for the Remote Sensing Centre with the Queensland Department of Environment and Science. We use satellite imagery and air and ground-based sensors to map and monitor Queensland's landscape, including woody vegetation, land use, fire scars, and yes, ground cover. Queensland has a very diverse landscape, and as ground cover is a direct function of soil type, topography, vegetation dynamics, climate, and land management, it's important to understand how it changes over time. Some areas in Queensland do support naturally higher levels of ground cover due to higher soil fertility or high rainfall levels. However, here in the rangelands, with the variable rainfall we receive, it's critical to maintain ground cover in the drier periods for sustainable grazing production and as a drought management strategy to minimise soil erosion when heavy rainfall does occur. So what's so hard about mapping ground cover? Well, for one, it's not a stable feature through time. Ground cover is very reliant on rainfall and temperature and has seasonal variations, usually growing in the spring and drying off in winter. It can also be very patchy across the landscape. It's unusual for a small paddock to have consistent levels of cover across it, let alone a landscape as diverse as Queensland with the different soils, topography and vegetation species. And Queensland is a big state. It would be impossible for somebody to travel around and collect field data about every single property, so we rely on satellite and airborne imagery. However, even that poses a problem as tree cover obscures viewing the ground. So here in RSC, we produce three main data products to help us monitor the environment, like this image to the left that shows how vegetation can change through the seasons. Our products are mainly used by landholders, natural resource managers and government to understand the current state of the environment and to improve on land management strategies. Everything is interconnected. For example, fire intensity is related to fuel load, which in turn relates to the amount and type of ground cover. So today I'm going to show you our products overlaid on a Mitchell grass area in Longreach, like what these photos are, and explain what they are, how we create them, and different use cases for each of our products. Unfortunately, however, we can't rely solely on satellite imagery. To make sure that the data we create with our products is correct, we use field data to validate and calibrate the results. We have a database of 1 hectare sites all across Australia that include quantitative data like site characteristics, tree basal area, and point intercept information. And the purpose of this is to give us an estimate of the percentages of what is green cover, non-green, and bare in each of the fractions. So there's been data collected in every state, and we continue to receive more from each of the states. So we've determined why we need imagery, rather than just fieldwork alone. Why can't we just use Google Earth? Well, the imagery that makes up Google Earth is very patchy. It's also taken from a bunch of different sources and can be quite old. We need reliable and consistent source of imagery, something with infrared bands to help us map the chlorophyll in vegetation. We also want a complete time series so that we can map changes over time. So most of our data products here in RSC are based off Landsat and Sentinel-2 satellite imagery. So the GIFs above are showing us how those satellites collect data across the globe. So Landsat here on the right has 30 meter pixels and, as you can see, a repeat time of roughly every 16 days. It has a very rich history of data, available right back to 1989, so we were able to create long-term time series statistics of any of the products I'm about to show you with it. Sentinel-2 here on the left is a newer satellite. It's got 2 sensors currently orbiting the globe, and we can create time series statistics from 2017 with it. It has both 10 and 20 meter bands and has a return time of averaging roughly every 5 days. So how do we actually map ground cover? Well, first we need to map all vegetation cover that we can see from satellites. As I mentioned before, that trees can be an issue. So with the release of the Landsat Historical Archive, we were able to use the surface reflected imagery, like this one on the left, along with our field data to create a fractional cover model. So this estimates the proportion of bare ground, photosynthetic vegetation and non-photosynthetic vegetation for each pixel. So it does not distinguish the trees and the mid-level woody vegetation from the green and dry ground cover. So it was originally calibrated with 1,500 field sites. However, we will soon be releasing a new version that has been calibrated with 4,000 sites and a new machine learning approach. So we can produce this as single date, monthly or 3-monthly seasonal products like this one that I'm showing you now. So the seasonal products are great for capturing variability through the time and is useful for regional comparisons. So the single date data sets are better for rapid change analysis. For example, we use it to map our fire scars across the state. So just to give an example of how the fractional cover data sets look over time, so here in the forested area, the top black line of our graph shows that there has been a relatively high total cover for the past 20 years, which includes a mix of both green and non-green vegetation as shown by the green and blue lines. The red line is how much bare ground there has been over time, so roughly 30% for this paddock. In comparison, this pastoral paddock on the right has had quite variable total cover over time, which has been comprised mostly of the non-green or non-growing vegetation and bare ground, with the green line showing a lower percentage of green vegetation over time. We can also explore the seasonal changes through these graphs, with both showing peaks and troughs with the green faction in relation to rainfall. We can also see higher percentages of green in the years with higher rainfall, like around 2010 in the middle. But we can't map ground cover with this product as there's too many trees. So even in the areas with minimal cover, like our pastoral paddock, the estimates can be uncertain. With the development of our fractional cover time series, it became possible to derive an estimate of persistent green. So the persistent green is an estimate of the vertically projected green vegetation fraction, where vegetation is deemed to persist through time, which means it doesn't experience the growing and drying cycles. So these areas are normally woody vegetation, like in our forested area, you can see it's dark green. However, there are areas like up north in the wet tropics with high rainfall where grass doesn't experience that growing and drying cycle, so it can sometimes be classified as persistent. So this product is available as seasonal only, and it's produced using a smoothing spline calculation, which means there's a 2-year lag in producing it. So currently we're in 2021, and so it means only 2019 data is available. It's best used for interannual changes of cover through time, so as a result of like La Nina and El Nino environmental conditions, rather than just a snapshot of a single season. Which finally leads to our ground cover product. So we were able to use the persistent green product as well as a persistent dry calculation from mid and upper story field data collections to create an estimate of foliage cover. So that foliage cover can then be used to adjust the underlying spectral signatures of our fractional cover product to create a ground cover model. So the estimates of our ground cover are restricted to areas of less than 60% woody vegetation. So in highly forested areas, we aren't able to see through the canopy cover enough to create a ground cover estimate. And while the ground cover is modelled on a robust field data collection, it has not yet been comprehensively evaluated, which we will be doing after we finalise the new fractional cover model. Now, we can see from these graphs that ground cover dramatically changes in the forested area. So the total cover is extremely varied through time and more of a mix of the non-photosynthetic and bare ground, which is the result of leaf coverage rather than actual grass cover. Our pastoral paddock, in comparison, has a very similar plot for ground cover as it did for fractional cover, although everything's shifted down a little, with the green cover sometimes being non-existent through our time series. And we can also see with both these graphs that the total cover through time also correlates well with annual rainfall levels. So as we can see, this ground cover product captures the variability in seasonal timescales and is great for analysing change over time or comparing different regions. So this is our seasonal product, but we are also able to produce monthly or single date products on request for more rapid change analysis. Just send me an email if you'd like to discuss any further. Our products can and are being used for a wide range of environmental monitoring programs, like our large-scale annual reporting for ground cover on the Great Barrier Reef catchments, or to mapping fire across the state on a monthly basis. We're also able to create further derived products based on the main three. So this includes a total deciles product, which we can compare the current state of fractional cover against a long-term baseline period, which is excellent for identifying areas of low or high cover relative to what is typical for the region. Another product is our seasonal dynamic reference cover, which is a calculation of the minimum ground cover through the time series in comparison with the current season ground cover to show areas that are currently under stress. So to access any of our products, you can use either Veg Machine or the Forage system. So Veg Machine is an online tool that you can use to get historical time series of any of our products. It's very simple to use, it's easy to understand, and it's free. So you can view our satellite drone for products here and generate comprehensive reports of our fractional or ground cover, like the plots I showed you before. And this can give you a better understanding of the links between management, climate, and cover in the rangelands. And yes, for those that want to know, the revamped development will begin very shortly on this site. Forage is a web-based system that generates and distributes information to your email relating to climate and pasture conditions for properties that you are specifically interested in. The ground cover report is available through that Long Paddock website. And for our more technical users, you can download the whole statewide seasonal mosaic datasets from Turn. They come as GeoTIFFs and can be quite large, up to 10 gigabytes per image. And remember, monitoring changes in ground cover can help to reduce soil erosion, plant stocking rates, and fire management, maintain biodiversity, and understand how nutrient cycling is impacted. Thank you.
Hey all, hope you enjoyed that. Nicole's still experiencing some technical difficulties, so I'll just work my way through this. I see there's one question from Robin Cowley at the moment. With the revamp of Veg Machine, we will be looking at putting other products in, so it may or may not occur through time, hopefully next year, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. I'm not sure if there's any other questions that anybody has, so feel free to put them in the Q&A session as you want. So if we have no more questions, we can go straight to Jason. Oh, one more. So, sorry. Diane Walsh, so why are Veg Machine seasonal analysis sometimes 6 months out of date, given stats? Go over with you. So with our seasonal products, we have to wait until the end of the seasonal, season occurs, and then it might take us about a month to create the product. So sometimes these products can be, at least a month behind the season, and then we will need to wait the full 6 months to get that second season happening. So they can be a few months out of date, which now, with the introduction of Sentinel-2 and Landsat 9 satellite just got launched. So hopefully soon we can start producing the monthly products, and they should be more up to date. Yeah, and does Veg Machine, or with Heather, does Veg Machine only relate to Queensland or cover other states also? Are you aware of any products that distinguish trees from ground cover in highly treed areas? So 2 parts. So there are other state mosaics on Veg Machine. So feel free to have a look, and if you would like a specific state, contact me and let me know which one. And other products, we're actually about to release another product that is a statewide mosaic of tree cover in Queensland. So that should be released soon as well. But I think that's it. So feel free to pass through to Jason now. Thank you.